Hey, what is happening, guys? It is Johnny with Rules for Rebels and episode 47 of Side Hustle Thursdays. Today's episode is about a couple friends who started a side hustle in the landscaping and lawn care industry and turned it into a huge business, which has made over $1 million in 2016. Today's episode also hits close to home with me as well. No, not the making $1 million part, I wish. But my first job ever at the age of 14 was at a landscaping nursery. In my late teens, I started a landscaping business lugging around my dad's lawnmower in the trunk of my Toyota Camry, and eventually made enough money and grew it to the point where myself and my current business partner today wound up buying a truck, trailer, and commercial lawn mowing equipment. We wound up selling the business, and then actually just a few years back, about 2 years ago, we started another landscaping and lawn care business. We started the business in late May and wound up growing the business to over 100 weekly accounts in the course of just a few months. And we actually wound up selling the business later that same summer for a pretty nice profit, and all in the course of just a few months. What's interesting about today's side hustle to me is the gentleman in today's side hustle wound up creating a service unique to the landscaping and lawn care business, but one which is very similar to Thumbtack, which is a service I primarily use to grow my lawn care business. Now, when we talk about side hustles, most of the side hustles we talk about are making $500 a month or so. That's great, that's fantastic, and that's what side hustles are all about. But it's also fun to hear about side hustles that grow into something much, much larger, and that's what today's story is about. Now, today's story may sound almost like more of a startup story, which isn't really the point of these side hustle stories. However, while it's grown tremendously, the story I'm going to tell you guys today is still being run by a guy with a full-time job, so I definitely think it still qualifies as a side hustle. So without further ado, guys, let's get into today's story. So Gene Calabero spends his days working for a Fortune 500 company as a sales coach, but a few years back, he and a couple buddies decided to revolutionize the lawn care industry. So Gene had a childhood friend named Brian, and a few years back, Brian approached Gene with an idea. Brian had worked in the landscaping and lawn care industry pretty much his entire life. He started a lawn care and landscaping business as a high schooler, and over the course of 15 years, he grew this business into a lawn care, maintenance, and landscape construction company, and he eventually sold this business to a larger company, but he still had all this knowledge and expertise about the industry, and he knew that the way customers hire landscapers, as well as the way that landscapers acquired customers, could be improved. Now, here's the thing about landscapers, and people in many trades for that matter. During the day, people are hard at work, and not only that, with being busy, but also with the noisy equipment, they can't always get to the phone to answer customer service calls, and most landscaping businesses are small businesses and can't necessarily hire a secretary. On top of that, they often just don't have the time to do the bookkeeping, the marketing, and everything that needs to be done to run a successful business. Now, hiring a landscaping or lawn care company can also be challenging as well. Homeowners have to call, leave messages, wait for a call back. Homeowners then have to call around to a few places to get quotes. And even then, it's a real crapshoot, the quality of the company and the quality of the workmanship that they're going to get. Now, Brian noticed that this process of finding a provider was problematic, as well as finding customers for lawn care companies. And he also noticed around this time that crowdfunding or peer-to-peer type services were really taking off. Things like Airbnb, which connects travelers with those with a spare room in our empty property, or Uber, which connects people needing a ride with people who have a car and want to drive them. You get the point. You know, crowdfunding, these peer-to-peer type businesses were really taking off, and that's kind of where Brian got his idea. So Brian had an idea to create a website where homeowners could post their details and be contacted by vendors with quotes. Homeowners don't need to call around, and providers don't need to prospect for clients. And Brian realized that this was a pain point, and that if he could solve this pain point by more easily connecting these two groups, providers and homeowners, he could help them and maybe make some money in the process as well. Now, one thing I'd like to mention, this business isn't the first of its kind. There's a site out there called Thumbtack, which does the exact same thing. However, it's not just for landscapers, it's for all types of service providers. I've actually made some videos about this site, Thumbtack, in the past, and it's actually what I attribute to a lot of the growth of my landscaping company a few years back. So Brian and Gene didn't exactly reinvent the wheel here, but what they did do is focus their site to a specific geographic area as well as a specific type of service, lawn care and landscaping. Anyhow, neither Gene or Brian had ever built a website, so they wound up hiring another company to build it for them. This wound up being a huge mistake. Not only was it incredibly expensive, but when the project was done, they were handed off a barely functioning website that didn't even look that good. To make matters worse, the company who built it for them wound up going under, so they eventually had to scrap the site because there was nobody who could maintain the site for them. Gene and Brian wound up going back to the drawing board. They wound up bringing on 2 additional team members who had skills in graphic design and web design and who could build the site as well as maintain and manage the website. They wound up building both a website and a mobile app, and they called their service GreenPal. They started by finding some vendors to feature. Now, their site was to be kind of a step above the rest and was going to be somewhat exclusive. So in the landscaping company, you'll find a lot of companies that are just kind of, very, very small, poorly thrown together companies. They may not be properly insured. People may not speak English that well. And while I applaud their hard work and their hustle, a lot of homeowners would rather hire somebody who's a bit more professional, who's properly insured, who they can easily communicate with, etc. So homeowners are looking for a service that's a little bit more professional, and that's why GreenPal was going to cater to that audience. So they started their service in their hometown of Nashville, Tennessee. The vendors which would be featured on the site would be vetted. There was an interview process. Providers had to have previous positive references, current insurance, professional lawn mowing equipment, and a truck which was presentable and in good working order. Now, how the site works is vendors have a profile. Homeowners can also fill out a contact form to be contacted with quotes. Vendors receive the info that the homeowner provides along with images from Google Maps so that they can see the size and scope of the property, and then they can bid on those jobs, and the homeowner can pick either the vendor with the lowest bid or whomever they feel the most comfortable with hiring. So this business model encourages vendors to do a good job in order to keep the reviews up so that they can keep getting work from the site. Now again, this business started locally and also very small, but to date they've grown to over 600 vendors over the past 4 years. They've also expanded into several other cities and have a list of other cities on a waiting list waiting to roll out in the near future. Now, how the business makes money is they charge a 5% fee for everything that goes through their platform, and with over 600 vendors and many customers, that adds up to a lot of money. And in 2016, they brought in over $1 million. And that they predict with over 300% growth year over year, which they've seen thus far, they'll more than triple those numbers by 2017. So even though Gene has been working this side hustle alongside his full-time job, this will probably be his last year at his job. The extra money has been great, and it's also been rewarding seeing how their business app and their website has improved the lives of not only homeowners, but the vendors that they work with. So it's really a win-win for all involved. Now, this side hustle comes from finding a problem or a pain point and figuring out a way to solve it. In a way, this business is selling back to you your time. I remember I was watching a Gary Vee video a while back where he said Uber isn't a transportation company. They're selling you back your time, and I think this is really true. Any of you guys who are old enough to remember when cabs were the main option for transportation, you'd call a cab, it'd take 30 minutes or an hour for it to show up. Nowadays with Uber, you almost always have one within just a few minutes of you, and you can literally watch its progress on the way to pick you up on your cell phone. So Uber sells you back your time, and I would argue to some extent that's what GreenPal does as well. It sells you back your time. You're not having to call around to a bunch of different people, leave voicemails, vet people, compare quotes, etc. Here you can do it all in one place, and you're also somewhat more insured of getting a good service provider since there's a review system in place as well. Now, I imagine some of you guys are probably saying, how the heck am I going to roll out an app or a website or techie project of this scope? And that's the thing, you don't have to. How you could solve this problem in a couple ways. So the problem being that landscapers may lack some customer service or responsiveness. And if you feel you could do a better job, you could start a landscaping company of your own and make it a point to be more responsive and do things better than the competition. However, instead of doing that, Brian and Gene had the money and the knowledge and the partners and the ability to partner with somebody who could build a technology to do this on a much bigger scale. So I get that not everybody has the money or the skills to do something like this project in today's story, but again, you could tackle this same problem by starting a lawn care company, which is literally something that almost anybody can do, and focus on solving the shortcomings of your competition. Anyhow, guys, I really like today's story. It really hit close to home for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. I hope you were inspired. Now get out there and start hustling.